Good morning. If I could everyone take their seats, we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. Seems awful quiet.
Well, there's Jim and Lisa and you and I. Oh, yeah, Mr. Coons.
In the audience here somewhere, perhaps. Are you Canadian?
Pardon me?
Are you Canadian?
Yes.
Okay. I was trying to place, it's like every
A lot of people think I'm from Minnesota or North Dakota.
About 60 seconds.
No.
Good morning. Turn it down just one notch. Yeah, just down one notch. Well, good morning, everybody. Probably just up a little bit there. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. We'll get right into the program so that all of you can get back to your businesses and making money, and we'll get started. I wanted to first of all thank the presenters and panelists for coming today, and thanks to all of you for taking time out of your day to join us. I want to recognize our elected officials that we have in the audience first. We can hold our applause till the end, but if each elected official would mind standing up, that would be great. We have from Adams County, Commissioner Chaz Tedesco. Also have Councilwoman Crystal Elliott from Commerce City. Councilman Rick Teeter from Commerce City. Councilman Steve Douglas and his wife Christy are here today. Mayor Dick McLean from the city of Brighton. And JW is here as well, right, from City of Brighton Council. And Mayor Pro Tem Renee Bullock is here as well. Thank you. Want to give our, one more in the back. Oh, good to see you. Thank you. Mayor Ford sends his regrets today. He took ill yesterday, but he wanted to be here today, so I want to pass that along from our mayor, Sean Ford. Today's topic is energy, emerging industries, and economics. And you may ask, why these topics? Well, when people think of Commerce City, sometimes they think of the refinery, but we think about energy in general. Today you'll find there's a lot more happening in the 1,500 businesses that Commerce City now call home. We're going to take you from hearing from one of the largest employers, Suncor, to a representative from one of our emerging cottage industries, Rocky Mountain Soda Company, now sold internationally. But before we get started, I want to share with you why it's important to celebrate and embrace our emerging energy industry. Lisa Strunk and Patty Silverstein are going to share some updated numbers, but looking at last year's research, energy is one of the 8 metro-wide target industries. There's a few things you may not know about energy in the Denver metro area. Its average wages are over $110,000, making it the third largest or third highest industry relative to wages in the Metro Denver, only behind aerospace and investment banking. Its 5-year employment growth was a staggering 27%, and there are over 28,000 people employed in the fossil fuel side of the industry, again, just in the Metro Denver area. And for our cottage industry growth, we're excited to be digging deeper into the composition of all of our industries here in Commerce City, and hopefully understanding more about the emerging cottage industries, such as local food and beverage production that you're going to hear about today. And Patty will share a lot of details about her presentation in just a few minutes. But first, I want to introduce Lisa Strunk. Lisa's here to share the 2014 economic forecast prepared for the Metro Denver Economic Development Corporation and how that study ties into communities in Adams County. Before joining Development Research Partners, Lisa worked in the Governor's Office of State Planning and Budgeting, earning her undergraduate degree from Penn State, and she also has a master's in economics from the University of Missouri. So, turn over to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, so good morning, everybody. It's nice to see some of you. This is my second annual breakfast, so thank you again for having me. So we're going to look into 2014 and see what's going on. Our forecast theme for this year is a delicate balance. So there's a lot of positive news coming out about the economy, and I'm going to share a lot of that with you today. 2013 was a year of record-breaking data, whether we're looking at employment, the housing market, or the commercial real estate market. And that's really helping set the stage then for growth in 2014. So when we talk about this delicate balance, we realize, though, that anything can sort of knock us off of that balance. So we have to kind of keep that in mind as we move through the slides this morning and all the good news that I have to share with you. So to provide some context for our discussion about Metro Denver's economy, we have to first take a look at what's happening globally. The global economy is set to rebound, and it looks like that 2014 is going to be another growth year for the global economy. It grew about 3% in 2013, with developed countries sort of setting the stage there. Also, we have growth in the developed and developing countries for 2014. The Eurozone is also turning from a recession to recovery, and we have growth expected in 2014, but moderate growth in some of those countries that were most affected by the recession, like Greece and Spain. We do know, however, there are risks to the global outlook. We still have very low inflation in advanced economies, financial market volatility, and a lot of political tension, of course, in the Middle East. So looking then to the U.S., U.S. growth is reflected in what we call real gross domestic product. This is the broadest measure of economic activity at the national level, and we see this accelerating in 2014 as consumers and businesses show more resilience to political factors and other challenges. We know we've had to deal with some tremendous economic issues at the national level, including the Federal Reserve that began tapering its monthly asset purchases. We have lower than expected growth in the Eurozone and a slowdown in major emerging markets that could lower U.S. export demand. The other big issue we have, of course, is in terms of spending and how we're going to trim that spending at the whole national level. So in this presentation, I'm going to focus both on the business side, so what businesses are doing and in terms of hiring patterns, what industries do we see growing and expanding, and then also what's going on with our consumers. So starting with businesses here, I think the biggest decision businesses are facing right now is hiring employees and adding them to their payrolls. There's also some really great real estate opportunities that are out there right now, especially in but we are in an era of rising interest rates, so that's something to keep in mind. Before moving on, the picture on this slide is actually myself. I am rock climbing in Clear Creek Canyon, and I am trying to maintain sort of that whole delicate balance. So I thought I'd just kind of add a little bit of personalness to the slide this morning. So our companies then are trying to balance and add those additional employees. We do know that companies have been relatively cautious when it comes to adding these workers. We have about 18% of the companies here in the Metro Denver region that are actually saying they are hiring employees. And we do see that number going up from quarter to quarter. However, when we look at the historical data, we are still behind in terms of our historical norms. We are in an era, though, where about 78% of our companies are saying that they're not really adding workers and they're not really laying off anybody. They're just sort of maintaining this whole status quo. Nonetheless, though, we do have these, we know that these companies have been adding workers and at actually a relatively quick pace. We saw a 2.9% increase in employment in the Metro Denver region in 2013. This was the strongest growth rate we've seen since 2000. Also, we believe that going into 2014 that this trend will continue. At the U.S. level, we're still seeing relatively consistent growth in the 1.6 to 1.8% range. But rather than talking about this in terms of percentage terms, we can talk about it in terms of net new jobs. So this 2.9% employment growth rate translates into about 42,000 workers that we added to Metro Denver in 2013. And 2013 was really the point that we reached where we have added back all the jobs we lost during the recession and have now started onto this whole new growth trend. As we look into 2014, we expect a similar trend, adding about 39,000 jobs over the next year. And so with adding those workers, we also want to take a look at what industries those workers are being added to. So this slide takes a look at our industry base in the Metro Denver region according to federal industry codes. There are 11 super sectors that we watch to see and track how diverse our economy is. The largest industry sector is professional and business services, and we go all the way down there to transportation, warehousing, and utilities. So notice a couple of trends on this graph. In 2013, all of the industries grew and expanded, so that's really great news. The fastest growing industry was natural resources and construction, a lot of that driven by the oil and gas activity occurring in Metro Denver, and also the strong construction industry right now. The other big growth industry is professional and business services. This grew 4.8% in 2013, and this is good because generally when you see an increase in this category, this generally means an overall increase in economic growth, because many of these companies do outsource their services and prior to adding workers onto their own staff. So a group that is actually not included in the federal employment statistics that I just showed on the previous slide are sole proprietors. And Colorado has the third strongest representation of sole proprietors in the nation, and that's behind Montana and Idaho. And so what do these areas tend to have in common? They're generally forward-thinking, more independent. The lifestyle tends to attract these sole proprietors. The other thing we have to keep in mind is maybe some of these sole proprietors might not be in this position or might not be in the position that they want to be in just because maybe they moved into this role after the recession and couldn't find a job. But we do hope that the majority of the sole proprietors will continue to grow and expand. The other way that we like to talk about our industry base is through our industry clusters in the region. We do tend to bring the entrepreneurs into the industry clusters. So even though they're not counted in the federal employment statistics, we do bring them here into industry clusters. So from our economic development strategy in the Metro Denver region, we focus on 8 key industry clusters ranging from aerospace and aviation to energy, IT, software, and healthcare. So we have a broad range of industries and also occupations that go along with that. So a fun way to show this information is through what we call our bubble chart. Okay, so this goes back to the recessionary period, 2009-2010. And notice that the red vertical line is sort of the zero growth line. So everything to the left of that are those industries that were showing negative employment growth. And so you'll notice that over on the right-hand side, the only growth industry there was clean tech. So keep your eye on that as we move into the next slide. So fast forwarding then to 2013, we have all the clusters growing in 2013. So that's really good news. This is the first time we've been tracking this particular set of industry clusters that we've seen growth in all of them. A couple of things to highlight that's happened within these clusters over the last year. First, I just want to mention that these are broad-based industries that we focus on from a marketing perspective for retaining and growing businesses in Metro Denver. So even though you don't see your industry up here, it does not mean it's not important. But these are sort of the ones that we're focusing on for key opportunities in the future in Metro Denver. Telecom, notice that is the green bubble. And that grew in 2013. This was the first time it's grown in a couple of years. We've had a lot of merger and acquisition activity occurring in this particular cluster across the nation. What we do see in Metro Denver is a lot of companies are secretly adding workers to their telecom base in Metro Denver. Comcast has been adding a number of workers here. We now have the second largest employment base for Comcast outside of Philadelphia. So a lot of growth happening in many of these clusters, telecom growing for the first time. On the energy side, there are two components that we look at, both fossil fuels and clean tech. Notice the fossil fuels now and clean tech have switched places from the recession slide that I showed before. And so fossil fuels was actually the fastest growing industry cluster among all of them in 2013. So both of those combined to give us sort of our whole balanced energy economy in the Metro Denver region. Another key industry I want to talk about is aviation. So that's the red bubble that's inside the large healthcare bubble. So we've seen a lot of exciting news for the aviation cluster over the last year. We've had the Denver to Tokyo flight. Of course, expansions that are occurring at DIA include sort of the building of the Westin Hotel, the Fast Track Center, new concourse developments. So all exciting news for aviation. Also, I want to draw your attention to the yellow bubble. This is IT software. In the Denver-Boulder area, we are a hotbed for startup activity. Boulder's actually ranked #1 in terms of tech startups, and Denver ranks anywhere from 4 to 6. We also have a lot of app development and cloud-based computing going on, so we are attracting a lot of those young entrepreneurs to both the Metro Denver region and also Lodo. We've seen an influx of these young workers going to Lodo as well. So I could talk about all the trends going on in these clusters, but I'll refer you to the metrodenver.org website, and on there you can find the extensive reports that go with all these clusters and, of course, more information if you're looking for that. So this expansion in employment growth then is tending to bode well for our commercial real estate market. 2013 was also a record-breaking year for the commercial real estate market, with all real estate types improving. All of them showed declining vacancy rates and rising lease rates. The industrial vacancy rate also reached its lowest rate on record in the region, so that was exciting news as well. And we had the emerging trends in real estate identified the Metro Denver region as the 11th best commercial real estate market in the nation. So improving commercial real estate picture as well. These improvements in the commercial real estate market then are fueling new construction activity. If you take a look at the office, industrial, and retail markets and you add them all up, we get about 3 million square feet of completed construction in 2013. And this was a 50% increase over 2012, where we had just about 2 million square feet of completed construction there. We've had a significant amount of space that is still under construction, and we've had a lot of built-to-suit types of construction with the TriZetto headquarters in Douglas County, Trimble Navigation in Westminster, and the IMA headquarters located in downtown Denver at the Union Station. Also, we have new speculative construction coming online as well. The other key piece of activity that we're seeing is infrastructure construction. So the Fast Tracks is growing rapidly. We have the West Line that recently opened. We have the East Line, the Gold Line, the 225 line, and the US 36 Rapid Bus Line all opening by 2016. Also, the North Metro Line will begin construction this year and should be completed then by 2018. Also, we have DIA construction, of course, the Westin Hotel and the Transit Center, and the concourse expansions, and also construction related to the tragedies that we had in 2013 with all the fire and the floods. So a lot of this construction activity going on across the Metro Denver area. So on the business side then, the businesses are trying to balance, trying to figure out what they should be doing, and hopefully positioning themselves where they can grow and expand. Consumers are also doing a similar type of balancing act, as you can see by the guy on the slide. I'm not talented enough to do that, so I couldn't post a picture of that. So we do know, though, that our consumers out there are feeling sort of this whole balancing act, trying to balance their spending patterns, savings, and investments. So consumers are feeling a little bit more upbeat and getting out there and actually spending some money now in our economy. So taking a look at consumer confidence, we do know that our consumers are still a little bit nervous when you take a look at these consumer confidence levels. We're still at very low levels when you compare it to where we had been. But our confidence has improved in recent months. We have increasing incomes, improving retail sales, and job gains that are all fueling the consumer confidence right now. And nonetheless, the general trend in 2013 has been for these increasing consumer confidence levels. So we hope this will continue here in 2014. When it comes to retail trade sales, we expect 2014 to be a little bit better than what we did in 2013. All of our consumers then, of course, moving into the marketplace there, which is reflected in this slide. The largest ticket item then that people generally purchase is their home. We had the highest level of home sales on record in 2013 in Metro Denver. Notice our expectation there is that home sale activity will pull back a little bit in 2014, and this is because we have slightly rising interest rates. But of course, keep in mind that we're at really, really low levels, so the only way that they can really go is up from here. So, but we're still at relatively low mortgage rate levels. What is constraining the marketplace, though, is that we have low inventory, or limited inventory. And these residential developers have really been responding by constructing new units. So we'll be adding about 15,000 new units here in the Metro Denver region in 2014, so we see that inventory start to come online here. Also, there's a big push now in the single-family detached side of the market. It is still the case, though, that we do see a lot of our construction activity at the multifamily side, but we're starting to see sort of this whole return of the single-family construction market and improvements in that activity as well. So the strong home sales activity then have contributed to rising home prices. We reached a record in terms of home prices again when we look at our data here, either if we're looking at the average price or the median price. Notice that the differential between the Metro Denver and the U.S. has been growing. We do think that the Metro Denver region, the prices will slow a little bit, and U.S. prices will continue to rise as the whole residential return of the residential market comes online across the country. So from an economic development perspective, we are an expensive housing market, but keep in mind that we do maintain our housing values quite well. On the foreclosure side, we've seen an improvement in our foreclosure activity. They've come way down compared to where they were in the early 2000 and late 2000 decade. We are definitely headed in the right direction when it comes to foreclosures, but we want to continue to see sort of this whole decline in the market. Okay, so wrapping this up then, so we want to keep in mind that we still have this very delicate balance out there. Our business and our consumers are balancing, but keep in mind we do have some challenges out there as well. We are in an era of global uncertainty. Some of our emerging economies are starting to slow their growth rate, which will have an influence here in Colorado and at the U.S. level. Businesses are still seeking clarity in terms of taxes and health care and government spending. So we think that we will continue to see this for a little while. But there are large opportunities, tremendous opportunities out there right now in terms of the strong job growth rate and active commercial real estate market, and we have a more confident consumer. And don't forget the hot residential housing market. So with that, I hope you have a terrific 2014, and we'll continue to balance throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We're going to go ahead and turn over to Patty Silverstein now. She is the founder of the Development Research Partners and is the chief economist for Metro Denver Economic Development Corporation. Patty received her undergraduate degree from Wesleyan University and her master's in economics from CU Boulder. I am pleased to announce that the City of Commerce City has engaged Patty to take a fresh look at Commerce City's target industry analysis that we did several years ago. Our approach, though, will be bottom-up, looking at the 1,500 businesses that Commerce City call home and understanding their important links and ties to the economic ecosystem in our community and the Metro Denver area. So with that, I'll turn over to you, Patty. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good morning, everyone. So just tagging on to what Lisa said about the residential real estate market, I was at a presentation the other day by Sherry Main with the Genesis Group, and she kept referring to the Northeast Corridor as the darling for residential development. So keep that in mind. We certainly expect that that will continue to be a very growing market. But so let's turn to our target industries. We have been very fortunate to be retained now by the City of Commerce City to look at the industry base here. And so let me give you just the brief overview of what the project all entails. And please keep in mind, this is still a work in progress. So today I just want to give you some of the highlights of the information that we are finding, but know that we are still in development of the whole project. So we're starting out, first of all, just doing an industry base analysis, just to get our bearings as to what types of businesses are located here in Commerce City. Then we go into a whole industry linkages type of framework. How do the businesses in Commerce City relate to each other? How do they relate to our economic development targets through the Metro Denver Economic Development Corporation that Lisa mentioned with our industry clusters? Then once we've decided on, kind of what those industries are that we want to focus on, we'll identify the companies and then really work on kind of the messaging of how does Commerce City's business base fit into the whole Metro Denver area. So just, again, a few of the highlights of the study so far. When we take a look at our whole industry base analysis, and notice here that I'm talking about 2,600 businesses as opposed to 1,500 because that component that Lisa had mentioned about those sole proprietors, the database that we use also tries to bring in some of those folks as well. So this is going to be some of those folks that they get reflected as the zero employees, meaning it's that sole proprietor who doesn't really have any employees, but we're trying to count them in here too. First thing to note in terms of the business base here is that Commerce City has a significant concentration of the businesses that I would call kind of medium size, those that are in the 10 to 99 employee category. So about 16% of the Commerce City businesses within that category compared to about 10% at the whole Metro Denver level. Then first of all, taking a look at the information according to those how the federal government defines our various industries. And again, this kind of corresponds to the chart that Lisa had taken a look at there too when we were looking at the overall Metro Denver base. But now we're going to look at just how does Commerce City compare to our Metro Denver region. Actually, this is a 9-county area, so it's Metro Denver and Northern Colorado. We include Larimer and Weld counties in this analysis as well. This is important for a couple of different things. First of all, it shows you where you have concentrations. It also shows you where you don't have concentrations. So that if you want to work on the diversity of the employment base and what types of industries you would like to see that are kind of missing in the area, this is a good way to kind of reveal that. So we notice that much of the concentration of the businesses that Commerce City does indeed have are located there along the industries that just so happen to appear towards the bottom of that chart in wholesale trade, transportation, warehousing, and utilities, manufacturing, and construction. Okay, now we're going to slice and dice this a little bit differently because what we have certainly discovered is that while the federal government definitions are terrific for really categorizing our businesses and comparing all across the country, that many times companies view themselves a little bit differently than how they get classified there. So we slice and dice the data a little bit differently to identify those industries where Commerce City has a concentration that is higher than the national average. So in other words, we're taking a look at the employment in these industries compared to total employment in Commerce City, comparing that to a like figure for the U.S. or for Metro Denver, and saying, do we have a stronger concentration? This stronger concentration is indicative of an industry that there's some type of competitive advantage. There's some type of reason that they are located here, and that's part of the process of really trying to discover why these companies are indeed here. So what we found is that there are 7 industries that have this higher concentration, or 7 industry clusters, I should say, because again, we slice and dice the data a little bit differently. And there are 7 industries then that have this higher concentration than the national average. So industries we want to take a closer look at, to identify what is it about Commerce City that is really helping these industries grow and expand. So these are listed in alphabetical order, so we're not trying to make any type of judgment regarding one being better than another as we start into this process. Do notice that we have our smallest industry is fabricated metals, so it's all those manufacturers that are involved in taking those metals and forming them into something, whether that be bolts and screws to structural steel type of products, to our largest industry, which is logistics and distribution with 7,500 workers. Now we want to, as part of this whole project, we are trying to determine then how do Commerce City's industry clusters fit within the Metro Denver industry clusters. Are they suppliers to this? Are they the same? Do we have some of the clusters that are really being focused on all throughout the Metro Denver region? Do we have some of them existing in Metro Denver? Or what are those various relationships? Again, this is just as a refresher. You took a look at some of these industry clusters, or at all of these industry clusters in Lisa's presentation. So now let's start taking a look at what the linkages are between the two. And we're going to identify linkages here both as how the businesses within Commerce City relate to each other, as well as how those industries in Commerce City relate to the Metro Denver industry clusters. So starting again at the top of our list, our alphabetical list there, we have this concentration of automotive repair and service operations here in the Commerce City area, and there is definitely a linkage there to the logistics and distribution industry. This is very much a critical supplier to all of our logistics and distribution companies that are located in Commerce City right now. Second, we go to the construction industry. How does that relate? And now we start to not only see some linkages within Commerce City, so the construction industry relates very directly with the energy industry, because many of those construction workers are also involved in helping to develop pipelines, utility lines, other types of structures as well. And then also now taking a look at, there is this combination, or they are in the supply chain to our Metro Denver industry clusters. So construction being in a major linkage within the telecommunications and the energy industry there in the Metro Denver area. Now, I should also note that in industries such as automotive, such as construction, obviously that feeds into our companies in many, many different ways. We're looking at those more significant concentrations, because we could make the case that there's a linkage between all of these industries, basically. But we're really trying to identify those that have some stronger concentration, some stronger linkage to be aware of. Moving then into our energy fossil fuels. Well, here is where we get the linkage that not only is it a supplier organization, it is one in the same as the industry cluster that we have at the Metro Denver level. So Metro Denver Economic Development Corporation, our energy cluster, includes both the renewable energy side and the fossil fuel side, and we see that this cluster does exist right here in Commerce City. And now many of you will think that this is all Suncor. And Suncor, yes, is a big component of that, representing about 1/3 of the employment. But we also have oil and gas field services, mining machinery, electric services, utility services that are located here, all of which contribute to our fossil energy industry cluster. So this is what this means to identify that we have this cluster here that is one and the same as the Metro Denver level. We can leverage all of the economic development efforts that are going on through the Metro Denver EDC very strongly, very directly here, right here in Commerce City. Turning to fabricated metals, again, these are companies that are making various structural metal products, could be bolts, screws, all sorts of different products that are out of metal. We see that this industry relates very directly to our energy industry and our construction industry that is located right here in Commerce City. But then we also have key linkages, key supplier linkages to aerospace, to aviation, to bioscience, and to our energy industry. Again, so as our economic development efforts at the whole metro region are trying to increase those industries, so too can our Commerce City economy grow and increase in relationship to those. Turning then to food products. Now, food products is kind of an interesting one because that's mainly a supplier to all of us as we eat. So the food and the beverage that is being distributed, it's a key supplier into the consumer base, not necessarily into a lot of the business base, with the exception it does have a very direct linkage into our healthcare and wellness cluster. On the healthcare and wellness side, not only are our food and beverage manufacturers located here supplying foods to hospitals that get distributed out to the patients, but it's also part of our whole wellness idea here in the Metro Denver region, where we are trying to really focus on healthy lifestyles, healthy eating. And so the food industry, the food products industry fits right into that. Then we get into logistics and distribution. Now, arguably, again, logistics and distribution fits into all of the various industry clusters and is an important backbone to the entire distribution network here in the Metro Denver region. But even as we try to look at just those very critical linkages, we still end up with a lot of them here. So our logistics and distribution industry being very much connected with our food products, with our energy, construction, and automotive right here in Commerce City, but also then a lot of direct linkages into that whole, as a supplier into many of our Metro Denver industry clusters, aerospace, aviation, bioscience, energy, and again, that healthcare and wellness side. So certainly as we look at this whole distribution network that exists right here in Commerce City is absolutely critical to all of our industry base throughout the Metro Denver area. And then finally, focusing on the machinery industry cluster. And this can be construction machinery, mining machinery, industrial machinery that is all being produced and distributed here from Commerce City. Again, direct linkages into our energy industry, into our construction industry, located here in Commerce City, as well as the Metro Denver key linkages with aerospace, aviation, and the energy industry. So, a lot to absorb right there in a very short amount of time, but what I'm trying to start is to paint the picture of how the business base here in Commerce City, how the companies that exist here in Commerce City fit within the whole fabric of the Metro Denver region and how they serve as critical suppliers and indeed critical industries in and of their own rights. So our next steps in our whole industry process here is first of all to finalize what industries then we want to target. We recognize that there are constraints as far as what staff can focus on, what the monetary resources allow, what even the community wants to focus on. All of those questions have yet to be answered before you really start to develop that whole economic development strategy of which of those industries to really focus your efforts on. Once those industries are really targeted, once we decide on what those target industries are, I should say, then we'll identify the companies so that you can get out there, talk with those companies, make sure that they are in a position to continue to grow and expand here in Commerce City. And then finally, again, working on that whole messaging about the importance of the Commerce City business base to the Metro Denver region. With that, I welcome any questions, comments you all may have. Please feel free to contact me if you have thoughts on this whole process. We're happy to take a look at that. Thank you so much.
All right, well, I'll try to get situated here. Thank you very much, Patty and Lisa. I want to introduce our panelists now. We are very pleased to have two Commerce City business leaders here with us today. John Gallagher, Vice President of Refining for Suncor Energy, and Moose Coons, co-founder of Rocky Mountain Soda Company. John is responsible for the effective operation of the Commerce City refinery, with key priorities being safety and health, environmental, and plant reliability. In his role, John also oversees production, expense management, capital project management, internal and external communications, as well as employee relations, labor relations, and stakeholder relations. Very big job, John. John has spent 40 years in the petrochemical industry. 31 of them with Suncor Energy. He worked in Fort McMurray, Alberta for 17 years and in Sarnia, Ontario for 8 years before coming to Commerce City more than 5 years ago. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Moose Coons, he is a true entrepreneur. Not only is the co-founder of Rocky Mountain Soda Company, he's also a partner in Peach Street Distillery, Colorado's oldest locally owned distillery. Moose and Rocky Mountain Soda co-founder Drew Fulton were presented Commerce City's Entrepreneur Spirit of the Award of the Year in 2013. The Rocky Mountain Soda Company was created with quality being their #1 goal. This is achieved by using only natural ingredients, including local beet sugar. Moose learned about beet sugar from his grandfather, who ran a sugar plant in Ovid, Colorado until 1985. Real beet sugar, pure carbonated Colorado water, and flavors provided by Mother Nature are the only ingredients in Rocky Mountain Soda. So thank you, Moose, for coming today.
Good description. Thank you.
So before I get into any of our questions for our panelists, I'd ask John or Moose if you have any questions for Patty or Lisa based on their presentations.
Go for me.
I think for me, I'm really grateful to both of you for identifying the sole proprietorship and also the I guess 0 to 50 employee group. I think that is one of the fastest growing industries that relate to me that I see Colorado really kind of pushing forward in Colorado pride and kind of the good local vor movement that I call us are into. And I think that's what, while Suncor is our backbone and, provides a lot of jobs and everything like that, the movement moving forward, what I see is a lot of local businesses. And thanks for pointing that out. And I encourage you guys to dive into that more. And anything I could do to help out, please let me know, because I think it's an important facet to our economy.
And I would comment, again, that, with much of the data that we look at every day, we forget about that group of proprietors. And so critical to the future health of the Metro Denver region and indeed the state of Colorado. So very important.
And for us, it's been key. Commerce City I actually call it the city of commerce. Everything we get, our bottles, our crowns, our boxes, our labels, are all within 50 miles. Our sugars, in Fort Morgan and Sterling is made here. And what that does, it provides us a platform to make a quality product, but also to give back to those industries in hopes that it kind of completes an economic circle where that employee might, we're giving money directly to them that causes employment, and hopefully they might go buy our soda, so that money might come back to us. And it's been fantastic being here. Our distillery is over in Palisade, and I grew up in Golden, Colorado, and being able to bring business back to Denver Metro is huge. And thank you for everybody in the economic development, in helping us with that.
Great, thank you. Well, obviously, Suncor and Rocky Mountain Soda are very different companies. I'm going to try to lead into some questions that are specifically for John, and then some specifically for you, Moose, and then we'll try to conclude with some questions that maybe both of you could answer. So I'll start with John. Metro Denver's target industry research definitely identifies the importance of energy, and particularly fossil fuels, to our economy. But what trends do you see with traditional fossil fuel companies, and how do you address the growing renewables trend, if you will, which is also an important component to the energy?
Okay, thank you, Jim. And I'd also like to thank Commerce City for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here, and Suncor is a proud member of this community. First, I'd just like to take a brief moment to tell you a little bit about Suncor. We are an international company, an integrated energy company, we basically take natural resources out of the ground, process those natural resources, and deliver them to customers. So we're full range of energy production. Our business is centered around our oil sands industry in northern Alberta, Canada, And we do have about 750 employees here in the United States, and the majority of those being right here in Commerce City at our refinery. We also have a downtown office that involves crude trading, product supply, and retail marketing. So we do have 45 retail gasoline stations branded under Shell in our business. So we are Colorado's only refinery. We produce about 35% of the gasoline for the state of Colorado, about 40% of the diesel fuel for Colorado, 40% of the jet fuel used at DIA, and about 75% of the road grade asphalt that's used to enhance the roads here in Colorado. So just a bit of background for Suncor. Try and get back to your question. You want that answered? So I believe, you know, when it comes to energy, I believe in a broad-based approach. We can talk about fossil fuels and renewables, but there's other components like coal, electrical, hydrogen even. And as a company that's deficient, or a country that's deficient in energy, we can't let any of those sit. So it's my belief that even things like coal will become, technology will advance coal so that we can actually use it. I don't think we can leave cheap energy in the ground, especially with the consumer demand that we have. Whether we like it or not, fossil fuels are with us for the long haul. Some experts will say 50 to 100 years, some will say hundreds of years. Therefore, fossil fuel companies like ours, although we are in renewables as well, we have renewable wind operations in Canada. We produce ethanol in Canada. We're the largest manufacturer of corn-based ethanol. So we are involved in renewables. We also have fossil fuels. And it's the fossil fuels are going to be a large component of the energy mix globally for a long time. If you look at the International Energy Agency, they predict within 30 years that fossil fuel consumption will drop globally by only 7%. So it'll move from 82% of the mix to 75% of the mix. So I think, you know, there's a lot of people who think we can flick a switch on the wall and get rid of fossil fuels. It's not going to happen. I think what we need to do is use technology and use responsibly environmental operators to enhance the fuels that we use. So I conclude that renewables will be an important part of the mix as we go forward, but also conclude that fossil fuels will be dominant for a long period of time.
Great, thank you, John. One more follow-up, then I'll switch over to Moose here. In 2012, research had showed that energy employment growth far exceeded a lot of the other target industries. And why do you think that is? What trends are you seeing in workforce development and hiring those individuals?
Ruby?
Yes.
Yeah, I would see energy employment in the U.S. Is on the rise, and that's due to many reasons. You know, we've got growth in solar, growth in wind, growth in gas, and actually growth in oil. Simplistically, part of the answer is that consumers are demanding more energy and suppliers are responding with growth. Great examples of resources being found, developed, and accessed are the Niobrara in Colorado here and the Bakken in the Dakotas. Another factor primarily in our refinery business is that employees, i.e. baby boomers, are retiring and employment opportunities are being created for the next generations. In our very stable business, we often talk about growth, but in our very stable business, we have hired over 100 people in the last 2 years. So even as a stable foundational component for the business industry, we are growing jobs.
Great, thank you, John. All right, Moose, I've got a couple for you here.
Okay.
We're seeing a lot of growth in locally owned, locally based food and beverage companies. Not only your company, Revolution Foods, Bake Fresh Company. What do you think the fundamentals are that are creating growth, and maybe even here locally, that makes it so attractive for you?
I think what makes it attractive is the pride that gets behind it, and getting back to this basic fundamental. I almost bring it back to post World War II, when we were a country that produced some of the best manufacturers, some of the best quality ingredients, and we made everything. And it's going back to that because we're realizing that outsourcing that isn't always the answer for certain industries, especially food and beverage. And using quality ingredients really isn't that much more expensive, and doesn't. I was talking earlier about, say, soda pop and the health concerns of soda pop. Our soda is designed to have one soda pop, and it's a 12-ounce soda. It's not a 64-ounce, glove jug from the wherever, of high fructose corn syrup. And for us, that mentality of like, okay, we want to make a quality product, and we want it to be relative in the marketplace, and this is how we plan to do it. And I think you're seeing that, whether it's the local food companies around here. I've heard of another burrito company, I think, coming in here that's using local eggs, local flour tortillas, so on and so forth, local ham for its bacon. That kind of mentality, again, is giving you that full economic sustainability that we're seeing in that full circle. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. So you had a lot of options, of course, to locate all over Metro Denver. What made you pick Commerce City?
Oh, well, just because it is the city of commerce, I can go down the street and literally within 5 miles pick up bottles and pick up my boxes. And we started with nothing. I mean, what it took for us to start a soda company, people would laugh at now, but that's how we started all our businesses, the distillery start, and just put a lot of hard work into it. We bought a 1968 bottling line for a brewery in Kansas City that had been sitting in a field for 10 years, and we had to refurbish that. It had leather seals. I went to a local tack person to make the leather seals on it, and that was 3 blocks away. And then what's funny is, I went to local machine shops, and that was only 10 miles away. And that in itself is huge. I don't have to outsource. I don't have to call Kansas City for a machine shop. Nothing wrong with Kansas City. Sorry, that's where we got the bottling line. But and then I made friends along the way. Like, these guys come to my factory when we were building the machine. Like, oh, I got to check this out. And they actually helped us because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Their instructions were in German, and I was online just learning everything I could about how to put this thing back together. And with our community, we brought it back to life. And that, to me, is huge. It's so important, and it's really cool and makes me proud to be in Commerce City. And honestly, too, our real estate market here commercially is great. It's, from a per square foot standpoint, it's very, very reasonable. So.
Great, thank you. Well, I've got a couple questions about supply chain, so I'll ask one for John, and then I'll ask one of Moose here. There's numerous components to the supply chain, of course, with Suncor and the energy industry in general. Approximately how many suppliers do you think are local or within the Denver metro region that you use, and what type of policies need to be in place to help those individuals, locate closer to your business?
Okay. This will be mind-boggling, but we have in our business in Commerce City here 850 different suppliers, which is always boggles my mind, especially when we have to put each one of those suppliers through a process that allows them to be qualified in our business. 150 of those suppliers are from Commerce City, and another 150 are from the Denver metro region. So we're definitely invested in the community that we're operating in. And for us, supplier requirements are pretty simple. We need quality products and services, and we need competitive pricing because we are in a business and we do need to succeed. It's my belief that business certainty is probably the single most important ingredient in terms of having a thriving business in any community. And taxation is a big part of that. Business incentives can be part of that. But really, it's about having certainty. If you don't know what's coming at you as a business, it's very difficult to manage your future.
So I'd ask a similar question of you, Moose. You know, how many local suppliers? You've referenced a few folks that you used. You know, does that seem more hyper-local with the cottage industry, or how does that affect you?
Well, we're lucky enough, being that the beer industry is so big here, that we have a lot of bottle manufacturers and crowns and labels and things like that. So we source primarily everything from Denver Metro and you know, the Eastern Plains on the sugar. Only thing we are working to source more here is are some of our natural flavors that we get. We have to get those from other places, but we're working with a new company in Greeley who's kind of trying to dive into that, and it's the relationship that we built with them to ask them to try and push them to get into this, because our goal in 2 years is to be 100% Colorado, you know. So
Outstanding. That's a great segue. I'll turn this one back over to you, Moose. So, you know, what can state and local governments do to help you create more jobs and advance companies such as yours? I know the state has the Made in Colorado label right now. Is that something you think you'd be taking advantage of?
we do, and the state of Colorado is fantastic in the sense of how they help local business. I mean, when it comes down to it, all local businesses need is money. I mean, we need money, but nobody really has that available. The government can't just give us money, but what local government has done for us is helped us with our business plan and helped us look at some future things. The governor gave an economic development speech when he was running for governor at our soda factory and helped us with our bottling line because he was in the beer business. And I just got back from Iceland on an international tour from the Colorado Department of Agritourism, who are bringing makers from Colorado, from cottage industries like beer, spirits, and soda, out on these trips to highlight, highlight what Colorado is. And that, got us into England, and we'll be distributed in England in May, and I'll be going back over with the Colorado Tourism over there to highlight Colorado and what we're doing, and we're bringing people here because of what we make. And I think the best thing is just to keep engaging with small business and understand what their needs are. And Michelle from Economic Development has been awesome and always trying to reach out to us and, you know, handing out soda for invitations. And in such a small, for most people that would be small, but for us that's actually purchasing soda. And, you know, I'm going to get my card to John if he has a company picnic and needs soda. I'll give me a call. Sorry, I got to do the sales thing.
Are you doing transportation? Let me just check here.
Thank you, sir. But yeah, I think local government is on par, and I'm very happy with everything we've gotten from the Department of Economic Development and Agritourism and the Department of Agriculture and everything like that. So,
excellent, thank you. Well, I'd ask a similar question of John. Again, what can the state and local government do to help you, create jobs as well as, potentially capitalize on the diversification of various types of energy?
From my perspective, the best thing that governments can do is to create a business-friendly environment. Sounds simple, but it's actually fairly complex. If you take our energy industry, we are very, very highly regulated. And it's my belief that this is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing to ensure that the right standards in place for industry. But in some respects, it can be damaging to a business for the long term in the business viability. If you take Suncor's case, we've spent over $900 million in the last 10 years to meet new regulations on fuels. And that's a good thing for the environment, and we're supportive of that. But that didn't make Suncor one thin dime in additional profits. So when you put burdens on industry through regulation, at some point in time, those burdens can become significant enough that they can impact the business viability. And then, decisions like relocation and finding a different way to do business becomes necessary. So I believe that measured regulation with a greater slant towards economic growth is really the answer. So finding a better balance there.
Great. Okay. Well, so we stay on schedule here. I'm going to ask one final question of each of you. I'll start with John. Where do you see your business in 5 years, and what challenges lie ahead for companies such as yours?
In the second part?
What challenges lie ahead for companies such as yours?
Okay. Well, we see ourselves in Commerce City in 5 years, so that's the first thing. But in terms of our business growth, we are a foundational business in the energy community. As I said earlier, we have interests in green energy north of the border and are always looking for business opportunities here in our United States operation. We will continue to look for those opportunities, and it's really hard to say. They have to be business opportunities to create value for our total corporation. I would say that our business, and has been over the last 5 years, if you look at how we've managed our business in the last 5 years, we've improved our operation dramatically through reliability, through environmental performance, and through safety performance. And those are the things that we focus on to get better and better. So we have a notion in our company of continuous improvement, and that's absolutely vital for us to get better and succeed. So we want to be a foundational member in Commerce City for a long time, and we'll do everything we can to make that happen.
Thank you, John. So, Moose, I'll ask you the same thing. Where do you see your business in 5 years? You're on your 5th year anniversary right now, right? So,
Yep.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, and what challenges do you think lie ahead?
Well, we're at about 12,000 cases a year of soda, and we want to get to about 60,000 in the next 5 years. We'd like to stay in Commerce City. We don't see that changing anytime soon. We love the environment, love the relationships that we're building. I would ask a personal thing. The biggest challenge for us is, and it's really a ploy to you guys, is to buy local and encourage your local shops to bring in local goods. And it might not be as cheap as the mass-produced stuff, but you have to understand too that the money that you're paying for that local item is going back into our local economy and making that more sustainable. I also see, for us, we are at 7 employees now. When we started 5 years ago as Drew and I, and that was what it was for almost a year and a half. And we would like to grow to, if we're going to triple in size, I'd love to have 40, 50 employees and give them meaningful employment, and hopefully help them develop themselves into whatever they want to do. The distillery is now 9 years old, and we started there was 4 of us, and now we employ over 40 people. So I think it's feasible, and we'd like to be there. And I think with your guys' help, we'll be there for sure.
Great, thank you. Well, please join me in thanking our presenters and panelists today. All right, before we get to the fantastic door prizes, I wanted to thank our economic development team, Michelle walking up here, Laura sitting down over here, as well as our consultant, Susan Stanton, and our communications division for helping us put this event together today. So thank you, all of you. And of course, thanks to everyone who attended today. We know how busy you are running your businesses. We appreciate your interest in coming today, and of course, all of your investment in Commerce City. We really do appreciate that. So thanks to all of you as well. All right. Some of you may know that we are the competition city for the 2014 World Lacrosse Championships in July. First time this event will be held west of the Mississippi. 4 years ago it was in Manchester, England. So you may have noticed our lacrosse sticks up here. There's also a centerpiece on your table. One chair at your table should have a red dot stuck to it. And so if you're the lucky winner there, feel free to take the door prize in the center of the table. It's a commemorative lacrosse ball for the championships coming up in July. And then we're going to go ahead and draw for the lacrosse sticks, and that'll be the big door prize. I'll give this to you, John. You'll be the lucky winner here.
For one or two?
Just one.
Steffen. Kaylee Steffen.
Kaylee Steffen is the winner of the lacrosse sticks right up here. Come on up.
That's right.
All right, well, that concludes our event today, and I would say please help yourself to a pack of soda on your way out as well. We've got some Rocky Mountain soda out in the hallways to leave, and thank you again for coming today.
It is. We make bourbon, brandies, vodka, gin. We have 18 different spirits. It's all basically.